the new God of compassion, the new gods of compassion, the new God of compassion, the new goddess of compassion, the new goddesses of compassion, the new goddess of compassion, the old God of compassion, the old gods of compassion, the old God of compassion, the old goddess of compassion, the old goddesses of compassion, the old goddess of compassion, the greater God of compassion, the greater gods of compassion, the greater God of compassion, the greater goddess of compassion, the greater goddesses of compassion, the greater goddess of compassion, the lesser God of compassion, the lesser gods of compassion, the lesser God of compassion, the lesser goddess of compassion, the lesser goddesses of compassion, the lesser goddess of compassion, the higher God of compassion, the higher gods of compassion, the higher God of compassion, the higher goddess of compassion, the higher goddesses of compassion, the higher goddess of compassion, the lower God of compassion, the lower gods of compassion, the lower God of compassion, the lower goddess of compassion, the lower goddesses of compassion, the lower goddess of compassion, the greater spirit of compassion, the greater spirits of compassion, the greater spirit of compassion, the lesser spirit of compassion, the lesser spirits of compassion, the lesser spirit of compassion, the higher spirit of compassion, the higher spirits of compassion, the higher spirit of compassion, the lower spirit of compassion, the lower spirits of compassion, the lower spirit of compassion, the major God of compassion, the major gods of compassion, the major God of compassion, the major goddess of compassion, the major goddesses of compassion, the major goddess of compassion, the minor God of compassion, the minor gods of compassion, the minor God of compassion, the minor goddess of compassion, the minor goddesses of compassion, the minor goddess of compassion, the superior God of compassion, the superior gods of compassion, the superior God of compassion, the superior goddess of compassion, the superior goddesses of compassion, the superior goddess of compassion, the inferior God of compassion, the inferior gods of compassion, the inferior God of compassion, the inferior goddess of compassion, the inferior goddesses of compassion, the inferior goddess of compassion, the ancestor God of compassion, the ancestor gods of compassion, the ancestor God of compassion, the ancestor goddess of compassion, the ancestor goddesses of compassion, the ancestor goddess of compassion, the ascendant God of compassion, the ascendant gods of compassion, the ascendant God of compassion, the ascendant goddess of compassion, the ascendant goddesses of compassion, the ascendant goddess of compassion, the descendant God of compassion, the descendant gods of compassion, the descendant God of compassion, the descendant goddess of compassion, the descendant goddesses of compassion, the descendant goddess of compassion, the transcendent God of compassion, the transcendent gods of compassion, the transcendent God of compassion, the transcendent goddess of compassion, the transcendent goddesses of compassion, the transcendent goddess of compassion, the past God of compassion, the past gods of compassion, the past God of compassion, the past goddess of compassion, the past goddesses of compassion, the past goddess of compassion, the present God of compassion, the present gods of compassion, the present God of compassion, the present goddess of compassion, the present goddesses of compassion, the present goddess of compassion, the future God of compassion, the future gods of compassion, the future God of compassion, the future goddess of compassion, the future goddesses of compassion, the future goddess of compassion, the authentic God of compassion, the authentic gods of compassion, the authentic God of compassion, the authentic goddess of compassion, the authentic goddesses of compassion, the authentic goddess of compassion, the synthetic God of compassion, the synthetic gods of compassion, the synthetic God of compassion, the synthetic goddess of compassion, the synthetic goddesses of compassion, the synthetic goddess of compassion, the progressive God of compassion, the progressive gods of compassion, the progressive God of compassion, The progressive goddess of compassion. The progressive goddesses of compassion. The progressive goddess of compassion. The regressive god of compassion. The regressive gods of compassion. The regressive god of compassion. The regressive goddess of compassion. The regressive goddesses of compassion. The regressive goddess of compassion. The ordinary god of compassion. The ordinary gods of compassion. The ordinary god of compassion. The ordinary goddess of compassion. The ordinary goddesses of compassion. The ordinary goddess of compassion. The extraordinary god of compassion. The extraordinary gods of compassion. The extraordinary god of compassion. The extraordinary goddess of compassion. The extraordinary goddesses of compassion. The extraordinary goddess of compassion. The static god of compassion. The static gods of compassion. The static god of compassion. The static goddess of compassion. The static goddesses of compassion. The static goddess of compassion. The dynamic god of compassion. The dynamic gods of compassion. The dynamic god of compassion. The dynamic goddess of compassion. The dynamic goddesses of compassion. The dynamic goddess of compassion. The land god of compassion. The land gods of compassion. The land god of compassion. The land goddess of compassion. The land goddesses of compassion. The land goddess of compassion. The sea god of compassion. The sea gods of compassion. The sea god of compassion. The sea goddess of compassion. The sea goddesses of compassion. The sea goddess of compassion. The sky god of compassion. The sky gods of compassion. The sky god of compassion. The sky goddess of compassion. The sky goddesses of compassion. The sky goddess of compassion. The god of compassion. The gods of compassion. The god of compassion. The goddess of compassion. The goddesses of compassion. The goddess of compassion. The half god of compassion. The half gods of compassion. The half god of compassion. The half goddess of compassion. The half goddesses of compassion. The half goddess of compassion. The vessel of compassion. The vessels of compassion. The vessel of compassion. The name of compassion. The names of compassion. The name of compassion. The person of compassion. The persons of compassion. The person of compassion. The persona of compassion. The personas of compassion. The persona of compassion. The personage of compassion. The personages of compassion. The personage of compassion. The personality of compassion. The personalities of compassion. The personality of compassion. The personification of compassion. The personifications of compassion. The personification of compassion. The image of compassion. The images of compassion. The image of compassion. The imagination of compassion. The imaginations of compassion. The imagination of compassion. The belief of compassion. The beliefs of compassion. The belief of compassion. The thought of compassion. The thoughts of compassion. The thought of compassion. The word of compassion. The words of compassion. The word of compassion. The action of compassion. The actions of compassion. The action of compassion. The reaction of compassion. The reactions of compassion. The reaction of compassion. The feeling of compassion. The feelings of compassion. The feeling of compassion. The situation of compassion. The situations of compassion. The situation of compassion. The circumstance of compassion. The circumstances of compassion. The circumstance of compassion. The environment of compassion. The environments of compassion. The environment of compassion. The relationship of compassion. The relationships of compassion. The relationship of compassion. The number of compassion. The numbers of compassion. The number of compassion. The formula of compassion. The formulas of compassion. The formula of compassion. The equation of compassion. The equations of compassion. The equation of compassion. The theory of compassion. The theories of compassion. The theory of compassion. The symbol of compassion. The symbols of compassion. The symbol of compassion. The color of compassion. The colors of compassion. The color of compassion. The thing of compassion. The things of compassion. the thing of compassion, the way of compassion, the ways of compassion, the way of compassion, the place of compassion, the places of compassion, the place of compassion, the time of compassion, the times of compassion, the time of compassion, the event of compassion, the events of compassion, the event of compassion, the result of compassion, the results of compassion, the result of compassion, the crown of compassion, the crowns of compassion, the crown of compassion, the throne of compassion, the thrones of compassion, the throne of compassion, the compassion king, the compassion kings, the compassion kingdom, the compassion kingdoms, the compassion king subject, the compassion king subjects, the compassion king's dominion, the compassion king's dominions, the kingdom of compassion, the kingdoms of compassion, the kingdom of compassion, the compassion queen, the compassion queens, the compassion queendom, the compassion queendoms, the compassion queen subject, the compassion queen subjects, the compassion queen's dominion, the compassion queen's dominions, the queendom of compassion, the queendoms of compassion, the queendom of compassion, the compassion prince, the compassion princes, the compassion princedom, the compassion princedoms, the compassion prince's subject, the compassion prince's subjects, the compassion prince's dominion, the compassion prince's dominions, the princedom of compassion, the princedoms of compassion, the princedom of compassion, the compassion princess, the compassion princesses, the compassion princessdom, the compassion princessdoms, the compassion princess's subject, the compassion princess's subjects, the compassion princess's dominion, the compassion princess's dominions, the princessdom of compassion, the princessdoms of compassion, the princessdom of compassion, the Lord of compassion, the lords of compassion, the Lord of compassion, the Lordess of compassion, the Lordesses of compassion, the Lordess of compassion, the priest of compassion, the priests of compassion, the priest of compassion, the priestess of compassion, the priestesses of compassion, the priestess of compassion, the ritual of compassion, the rituals of compassion, the ritual of compassion, the shrine of compassion, the shrines of compassion, the shrine of compassion, the temple of compassion, the temples of compassion, the temple of compassion, the leader of compassion, the leaders of compassion, the leader of compassion, the follower of compassion, the followers of compassion, the follower of compassion, the natural substance of compassion, the natural substances of compassion, the natural substance of compassion, the supernatural substance of compassion, the supernatural substances of compassion, the supernatural substance of compassion, the temporal substance of compassion, the temporal substances of compassion, the temporal substance of compassion, the spiritual substance of compassion, the spiritual substances of compassion, the spiritual substance of compassion, the natural form of compassion, the natural forms of compassion, the natural form of compassion, the supernatural form of compassion, the supernatural forms of compassion, the supernatural form of compassion, the temporal form of compassion, the temporal forms of compassion, the temporal form of compassion, the spiritual form of compassion, the spiritual forms of compassion, the spiritual form of compassion, the age of compassion, the ages of compassion, the age of compassion, the era of compassion, the eras of compassion, the era of compassion, the awakener of compassion, the awakeners of compassion, the awakener of compassion, the awakening of compassion, the awakenings of compassion, the awakening of compassion, the realm of compassion, the realms of compassion, the realm of compassion, the dimension of compassion, the dimensions of compassion, the dimension of compassion, the zone of compassion, the zones of compassion, the zone of compassion, the frequency of compassion, the frequencies of compassion, the frequency of compassion, the century of compassion, the centuries of compassion, the century of compassion, The millennium of compassion. The millenniums of compassion. The millennium of compassion. The purpose of compassion. The purposes of compassion. The purpose of compassion. The meaning of compassion. The meanings of compassion. The meaning of compassion. The culture of compassion. The cultures of compassion. The culture of compassion. The demonstrator of compassion. The demonstrators of compassion. The demonstrator of compassion. The demonstration of compassion. The demonstrations of compassion. The demonstration of compassion. The manifester of compassion. The manifestors of compassion. The manifester of compassion. The manifestation of compassion. The manifestations of compassion. The manifestation of compassion. The presence of compassion. The presences of compassion. The presence of compassion. The glow of compassion. The glows of compassion. The glow of compassion. The goal of compassion. The goals of compassion. The goal of compassion. The plan of compassion. The plans of compassion. The plan of compassion. The book of compassion. The books of compassion. The book of compassion. The philosopher of compassion. The philosophers of compassion. The philosopher of compassion. The philosophy of compassion. The philosophies of compassion. The philosophy of compassion. The releaser of compassion. The releasers of compassion. The releaser of compassion. The release of compassion. The releases of compassion. The release of compassion. The variable of compassion. The variables of compassion. The variable of compassion. The cause of compassion. The causes of compassion. The cause of compassion. The effect of compassion. The effects of compassion. The effect of compassion. The journey of compassion. The journeys of compassion. The journey of compassion. The emergence of compassion. The emergences of compassion. The emergence of compassion. The source of compassion. The sources of compassion. The source of compassion. The originator of compassion. The originators of compassion. The originator of compassion. The origin of compassion. The origins of compassion. The origin of compassion. The forefather of compassion. The forefathers of compassion. The forefather of compassion. The foremother of compassion. The foremothers of compassion. The foremother of compassion. The ancestor of compassion. The ancestors of compassion. The ancestor of compassion. The descendant of compassion. The descendants of compassion. The descendant of compassion. The lineage of compassion. The lineages of compassion. The lineage of compassion. The heritage of compassion. The heritages of compassion. The heritage of compassion. The heir of compassion. The heirs of compassion. The heir of compassion. The co-heir of compassion. The co-heirs of compassion. The co-heir of compassion. The joint heir of compassion. The joint heirs of compassion. The joint heir of compassion. The dynasty of compassion. The dynasties of compassion. The dynasty of compassion. The force of compassion. The forces of compassion. The force of compassion. The law of compassion. The laws of compassion. The law of compassion. The pact of compassion. The pacts of compassion. The pact of compassion. The game of compassion. The games of compassion. The game of compassion. The mask of compassion. The masks of compassion. The mask of compassion. The armor of compassion. The armors of compassion. The armor of compassion. The sword of compassion. The swords of compassion. The sword of compassion. The shield of compassion. The shields of compassion. The shield of compassion. The force shield of compassion. The force shields of compassion. The force shield of compassion. The armored force shield of compassion. The armored force shields of compassion. The armored force shield of compassion. The champion of compassion. The champions of compassion. The champion of compassion. The guardian of compassion. The guardians of compassion. The guardian of compassion. The defender of compassion. The defenders of compassion. The defender of compassion. The protector of compassion. The protectors of compassion. The protector of compassion. The chant of compassion. The chants of compassion. The chant of compassion. The shape of compassion. The shapes of compassion. The shape of compassion. The cube of compassion. The cubes of compassion. The cube of compassion. The cuboid of compassion. The cuboids of compassion. The cuboid of compassion. The sphere of compassion. The spheres of compassion. The sphere of compassion. The spheroid of compassion. The spheroids of compassion. The spheroid of compassion. The prism of compassion. The prisms of compassion. The prism of compassion. The pyramid of compassion. The pyramids of compassion. The pyramid of compassion. The cylinder of compassion. The cylinders of compassion. The cylinder of compassion. The cone of compassion. The cones of compassion. The cone of compassion. The triangle of compassion. The triangles of compassion. The triangle of compassion. The circle of compassion. The circles of compassion. The circle of compassion. The semicircle of compassion. The semicircles of compassion. The semicircle of compassion. The square of compassion. The squares of compassion. The square of compassion. The rectangle of compassion. The rectangles of compassion. The rectangle of compassion. The parallelogram of compassion. The parallelograms of compassion. The parallelogram of compassion. The rhombus of compassion. The rhombuses of compassion. The rhombus of compassion. The trapezoid of compassion. The trapezoids of compassion. The trapezoid of compassion. The polygon of compassion. The polygons of compassion. The polygon of compassion. The pentagon of compassion. The pentagons of compassion. The pentagon of compassion. The hexagon of compassion. The hexagons of compassion. The hexagon of compassion. The septagon of compassion. The septagons of compassion. The septagon of compassion. The octagon of compassion. The octagons of compassion. The octagon of compassion. The nonagon of compassion. The nonagons of compassion. The nonagon of compassion. The decagon of compassion. The decagons of compassion. The decagon of compassion. The evolution of compassion. The evolutions of compassion. The evolution of compassion. The revolution of compassion. The revolutions of compassion. The revolution of compassion. The elemental art of compassion. The elemental arts of compassion. The elemental art of compassion. The elemental science of compassion. The elemental sciences of compassion. The elemental science of compassion. The elemental principle of compassion. The elemental principles of compassion. The elemental principle of compassion. The elemental technology of compassion. The elemental technologies of compassion. The elemental technology of compassion. The low elemental art of compassion. The low elemental arts of compassion. The low elemental art of compassion. The low elemental science of compassion. The low elemental sciences of compassion. The low elemental science of compassion. The low elemental principle of compassion. The low elemental principles of compassion. The low elemental principle of compassion. The low elemental technology of compassion. The low elemental technologies of compassion. The low elemental technology of compassion. The high elemental art of compassion. The high elemental arts of compassion. The high elemental art of compassion. The high elemental science of compassion. The high elemental sciences of compassion. The high elemental science of compassion. The high elemental principle of compassion. The high elemental principles of compassion. The high elemental principle of compassion. The high elemental technology of compassion. The high elemental technologies of compassion. The high elemental technology of compassion. The agent of compassion. The agents of compassion. The agent of compassion. The agency of compassion. The agencies of compassion. The agency of compassion. The amplifier of compassion. The amplifiers of compassion. The amplifier of compassion. The amplification of compassion. The amplifications of compassion. The amplification of compassion. The enhancer of compassion. The enhancers of compassion. The enhancer of compassion. The enhancement of compassion. The enhancements of compassion. The enhancement of compassion. The magnifier of compassion. The magnifiers of compassion. The magnifier of compassion. The magnification of compassion. The magnifications of compassion. The magnification of compassion. The influencer of compassion. The influencers of compassion. The influencer of compassion. The influence of compassion. The influences of compassion. The influence of compassion. The emanator of compassion. The emanators of compassion. The emanator of compassion. The emanation of compassion. The emanations of compassion. The emanation of compassion. The converger of compassion. The convergers of compassion. The converger of compassion. The convergence of compassion. The convergences of compassion. The convergence of compassion. The aura of compassion. The auras of compassion. The aura of compassion. The impression of compassion. The impressions of compassion. The impression of compassion. The intelligence of compassion. The intelligences of compassion. The intelligence of compassion. The sophistication of compassion. The sophistications of compassion. The sophistication of compassion. The genius of compassion. The geniuses of compassion. The genius of compassion. The polymath of compassion. The polymaths of compassion. The polymath of compassion. The psychic of compassion. The psychics of compassion. The psychic of compassion. The knowledge of compassion. The knowledges of compassion. The knowledge of compassion. The understanding of compassion. The understandings of compassion. The understanding of compassion. The wisdom of compassion. The wisdoms of compassion. The wisdom of compassion. The secret of compassion. The secrets of compassion. The secret of compassion. The mystery of compassion. The mysteries of compassion. The mystery of compassion. The revelation of compassion. The revelations of compassion. The revelation of compassion. The tactic of compassion. The tactics of compassion. The tactic of compassion. The strategy of compassion. The strategies of compassion. The strategy of compassion. The strength of compassion. The strengths of compassion. The strength of compassion. The might of compassion. The mights of compassion. The might of compassion. The power of compassion. The powers of compassion. The power of compassion. The authority of compassion. The authorities of compassion. The authority of compassion. The dominion of compassion. The dominions of compassion. The dominion of compassion. The rhythm of compassion. The rhythms of compassion. The rhythm of compassion. The melody of compassion. The melodies of compassion. The melody of compassion. The music of compassion. The musics of compassion. The music of compassion. The lyric of compassion. The lyrics of compassion. The lyric of compassion. The song of compassion. The songs of compassion. The song of compassion. The dance of compassion. The dances of compassion. The dance of compassion. The spirit of compassion. The spirits of compassion. The spirit of compassion. The soul of compassion. The souls of compassion. The soul of compassion. The body of compassion. The bodies of compassion. The body of compassion. The mark of compassion. The marks of compassion. The mark of compassion. The promise of compassion. The promises of compassion. The promise of compassion. The visionary of compassion. The visionaries of compassion. The visionary of compassion. The vision of compassion. The visions of compassion. The vision of compassion. The picture of compassion. The pictures of compassion. The picture of compassion. The sound of compassion. The sounds of compassion. The sound of compassion. The dung of compassion. The dungs of compassion. The dung of compassion. The language of compassion. The languages of compassion. The language of compassion. The communication of compassion. The communications of compassion. The communication of compassion. The people of compassion. The peoples of compassion. The people of compassion. The society of compassion. The societies of compassion. The society of compassion. The fortress of compassion. The fortresses of compassion. The fortress of compassion. The government of compassion. The governments of compassion. The government of compassion. The city of compassion. The cities of compassion. The city of compassion. The nation of compassion. The nations of compassion. the nation of compassion, the civilization of compassion, the civilizations of compassion, the civilization of compassion, the world of compassion, the worlds of compassion, the world of compassion.